The United Nations just dropped a bombshell that changes everything about the Jeffrey Epstein case. UN human rights experts have officially declared that Epstein's sex trafficking operation may constitute crimes against humanity. That's the same legal classification as genocide and war crimes. This isn't just another criminal case anymore. This is now international law territory. To understand why this is so significant, we need to go back to August 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, the wealthy financier, was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. He was accused of running a systematic operation that exploited dozens of underage girls between 2002 and 2005. But here's what made his case different from other predators: the scope and the protection. Court documents revealed a network that spanned multiple countries, involved powerful politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. Epstein had homes in New York, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, and his infamous private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Flight logs showed his private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, transported high-profile passengers hundreds of times. Despite credible allegations dating back to 2005, Epstein received an unprecedented plea deal in 2008 from then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. Instead of facing potential life imprisonment, he served just 13 months in a county jail with work release privileges. This wasn't just individual criminal behavior. It appeared to be systematic exploitation protected by wealth and connections. Now, newly released documents have given UN human rights experts enough evidence to make this historic declaration. While the exact contents haven't been fully disclosed, these documents likely come from ongoing civil litigation against Epstein's estate and associates. The timing is crucial. Over 4 years after his death, we're still uncovering the true scope of his operation. What makes this a potential crime against humanity? According to the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court, crimes against humanity require systematic attacks against civilian populations. The UN experts appear to have found evidence that Epstein's trafficking wasn't just individual crimes, but a coordinated, widespread operation targeting vulnerable victims across multiple jurisdictions. Dr. Reem Al-Salem, the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, has been particularly vocal about holding institutions accountable for enabling such systematic abuse. The fact that UN experts are calling for an independent international investigation suggests they believe national authorities, including U.S. law enforcement, may have been compromised or inadequate in their response. This isn't just about Epstein anymore. It's about everyone who knew, everyone who participated, and everyone who covered it up. The implications of this UN declaration are staggering. Crimes against humanity don't have a statute of limitations under international law. This means that anyone who participated in or enabled Epstein's operation could theoretically be prosecuted decades from now. Compare this to the current situation. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate, was sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2022 for her role in the trafficking scheme. But many other alleged participants have never faced charges. The newly released documents reportedly contain flight logs, email communications, and witness testimonies that could implicate additional high-profile figures. When the UN calls something a crime against humanity, it's not just a legal technicality. It's a signal to the international community that this requires global attention and resources. It opens the door for international courts to potentially take jurisdiction if national authorities fail to act. This could mean that individuals who thought they were protected by wealth, political connections, or even sovereign immunity might find themselves facing international prosecutors. The UN experts are specifically calling for an investigation that's independent from any national government, suggesting they don't trust existing authorities to handle this properly. To understand why this matters beyond the Epstein case, we need to look at how crimes against humanity work in practice. This legal framework was created after World War II to address systematic atrocities that national governments couldn't or wouldn't prosecute. It's been used for genocide in Rwanda, ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia, and systematic torture by authoritarian regimes. The key element is always the same: widespread, systematic attacks on civilians with knowledge from authorities. What the UN appears to be saying is that Epstein's operation fits this pattern. It wasn't just one predator acting alone, it was a systematic operation that continued for years despite law enforcement awareness. The 2008 plea deal that Alexander Acosta negotiated included a controversial non-prosecution agreement that protected not just Epstein, but also any potential co-conspirators. This agreement was kept secret from victims, violating federal law. When this finally came to light in 2019, Acosta was forced to resign as labor secretary. But the damage was done. Evidence was lost, witnesses scattered, and the criminal statute of limitations expired for many potential charges. The newly released documents are creating fresh urgency because they're providing evidence that previous investigations missed or ignored. Legal experts believe these documents likely include detailed financial records showing how the operation was funded and sustained, communications between Epstein and high-profile associates, and, most importantly, additional victim testimonies that weren't included in earlier proceedings. Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most vocal accusers, settled a civil lawsuit against Prince Andrew in 2022 for an undisclosed amount. But settlement money doesn't equal justice for systematic crimes. The UN's intervention suggests that civil settlements and individual prosecutions aren't enough when dealing with systematic criminal enterprises. What's particularly significant is the timing. This declaration comes as multiple jurisdictions are still pursuing civil cases against Epstein's estate, which is valued at over $600 million. The estate has been paying settlements to victims, but critics argue this is just buying silence rather than achieving accountability. Here's what makes this UN declaration a potential game changer. It removes the protection of national boundaries and political connections. Crimes against humanity can be prosecuted by any country under universal jurisdiction, meaning someone could be arrested in London for crimes committed in New York if their home country won't act. This principle has been used to prosecute war criminals and human traffickers who thought they were beyond reach. The UN experts are essentially saying that the Epstein case represents systematic crimes that transcend national law enforcement capabilities. They're calling for an independent international mechanism, similar to what was used for war crimes in Syria or human rights violations in Myanmar. This could mean a special prosecutor with international authority, access to resources from multiple countries, and the ability to compel testimony from witnesses regardless of their nationality or location. For victims who have felt abandoned by traditional justice systems, this represents hope for real accountability. The broader implications extend far beyond one criminal case. If the UN's assessment holds up, it could set a precedent for how international law addresses systematic trafficking operations protected by wealth and power. We're living in an era where criminal enterprises can operate across multiple jurisdictions, using legal loopholes and political connections to avoid accountability. The Epstein case exposed how traditional law enforcement struggles with crimes that cross borders and involve powerful actors. Similar patterns have emerged in other high-profile trafficking cases, from Nexium cult leader Keith Raniere to R. Kelly's systematic abuse network. The UN's intervention suggests that systematic sexual exploitation might require international legal frameworks, not just local prosecutions. This could influence how we handle other cases involving powerful figures who use their resources to evade justice. The document releases are also raising questions about what other evidence might still be sealed or classified. Court filings suggest there are thousands of pages of materials that haven't been made public, including potential evidence about other participants in the trafficking network. The UN's call for transparency could force authorities to release materials they've been protecting. What happens next depends on political will and public pressure. The UN can make recommendations, but actual prosecutions require countries to act. The United States could face international pressure to reopen investigations or cooperate with international prosecutors. Other countries where Epstein operated, including the UK, France, and various Caribbean nations, might also face scrutiny about their handling of the case. For victims and survivors, this represents both hope and frustration. Hope because international attention might finally bring comprehensive justice. Frustration because it's taken over 4 years and UN intervention to get this level of serious attention. The survivors have been telling their stories for decades in some cases, but it took a global human rights framework to get authorities to listen. This case is becoming a test of whether international law can evolve to address modern criminal enterprises that operate beyond traditional boundaries. The UN's declaration that Epstein's trafficking operation may constitute crimes against humanity isn't just about one case. It's about establishing that no one is above international law, regardless of their wealth or connections. This could reshape how we handle systematic criminal enterprises in the digital age. What do you think? Should international bodies step in when national governments fail to deliver justice? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more analysis of stories that matter beyond the headlines.